Okay, we're gonna start shortly, just waiting for people to arrive virtually.
I don't see myself in the video.
You don't?
Yeah.
Um,
But you can see me, right?
yes, I can. Wait, because I'm sharing the screen. Hold on, can you see that now?
Just a moment. Ah, okay, okay. Too many of us in the.
Okay,
No, it's got it. Yeah.
okay. Is everything all right? Do you see yourself,
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah.
Yes. Olivia is still muted.
Yeah. Unmute yourself. Ah. Okay.
Ah,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay. I just, right. So we see a few people coming in.
Mhm.
Jason Tan. Hello, Jason. Hi, Melissa. Your mem is here.
Hi.
I can literally hear her behind you, Gary. That's really good. Hi,
Yeah.
Dr. John. We have a few other people, Kiria, Zuleika, Mr. Larry Ong. Hello. Nizam Azahar. Miss Mok. We have another big industry player, tourism.
Yes.
Oh.
Mock Lydia.
Yes, we've got Miss Mok Vinia. And Gary from BE and BB as well from SCB. Great stuff. Okay. All right, let's start before we get too late. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday Talk Live by Place Borneo. My name is Mona Abdul Manap, and on the screen you see all the other speakers that we have today. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, this is the 12th edition. Thank you for staying with us. For the new ones, this is the Tuesday Talk Live that was created by Place Borneo as a platform for us to share ideas, information, knowledge, solutions. During these very difficult times, we look for solutions from our fellow industry players, from people in the community. Also, it is a great way for us to record the tribal knowledge that we have in our community. I'm pretty sure there's going to be more pandemics in the future. I hope not within our lifetime, but maybe they can look back at these videos and see what we've done during this pandemic and learn a thing or two. And this episode, it's called Tourism Perseverance During a Crisis. This is something that's close to the heart because before we were a conference organizer, we were actually a travel agent, a tour operator, just like Gary. And I was bringing tourists into the jungle, camping, looking at orangutans, going to the caves, and so on and so forth. So right now, the tourism industry is the worst affected by this pandemic. So how are the tourism players coping with this? What are they doing right now? What different things are they doing just to cope at the current moment? So that's what we're going to talk about. And also, how do they see this pandemic changing the tourism industry? What's going to be new after this whole thing blows over? So those are things that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to introduce the speakers. We've got Gary Spelderwin, Director of Eco Green Holidays in Duran Berhad. They are an inbound and outbound tour operator, and they also organize incentives and business events groups. And Gary himself started as a licensed tour guide in the 80s and 90s, and then he went into environmental management when he joined Trinakens, which is a German waste management company. They have a Kuching office here. I think it's German, right? Is it German? Yeah, it's German.
Oh, Sarawak. Partly
Oh,
Sarawak. Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
And in 2015, you joined your wife, Melissa, in running this company, Eco Green. So welcome, Gary, to the show. And the next speaker, we have Anita Mcgillivray, President and also founding member of the Friends of Sarawak Museum. And the FOSM, as they call themselves, promotes an appreciation of Sarawak's cultural heritage through its museums. We've got a few museums right here in Kuching itself and all over Sarawak. And in fact, the Sarawak Museum building is currently being built, the new building. And the Sarawak Museum is one of the top 10 best museums in Southeast Asia. That's as far as I know, and we're very proud of that. So they're using the museums to teach people about our cultural and our heritage here in Sarawak. And they, FOSM, they recently launched the Bakari Trail together with Sarawak Forestry and the Tourism Ministry. And this trail follows the Italian botanist Odoardo Beccari during his expedition in Sarawak in 1865, all the way back then. And right now we will learn what he found on the trail if you go on that trail itself. So today we're going to talk a bit about that trail, how it is a tourism product, and what it's supposed to be and what it's not supposed to be in the tourism industry. So welcome, Anita. And last but not least, we had a beautiful Olivia Ting, Executive Director and General Manager of Meridian Hotel, a superbly designed boutique hotel, very beautiful, right in the city center of Kuching. And they're also a multi-awards winner for outstanding hotels since 2018. Olivia herself is a member of the Chaîne de Rôtisserie. And so that tells us that she knows a lot about gastronomic and culinary arts. So I'm sure your restaurant will have really fantastic food right there. So welcome all the speakers. And as usual, we're going to start with the individual sessions of each speaker, and then we'll go right on to the Q&A. For those of you on Zoom, you can ask your questions on the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And all those of you on YouTube, you can also put your questions on the chat box and we'll be able to pick it up from there. And we'll just go on the questions as we go along. So Gary, why don't you start first?
Hi, everyone. Very good morning to you. My name is Gary Spaldwin. I used to be a local licensed tour guide probably about 25 years ago. I hope you don't try to judge my age. Anyway, I did local tours, inbound tours, guiding throughout Sarawak. Then about 4 years of outbound tours based in a company in Kuala Lumpur. So basically a total of 10 years of guiding. Then I decided to change lines and go into environment. I was a business development manager with Trinican Sarawak. It's a waste management company, and my clients were mainly made up of the oil and gas industry in the northern part of Sarawak, like Miri, Labuan, Sabah, and all that. Then about 6 years ago, I decided to come back and join Melissa because our business was sort of picking up, and to give her a hand, I joined her in Eco Green Holidays to the present moment. Well, that's my introduction.
Okay, thank you. That was it. All right. Thanks, Gary. Okay, next we have Anita. Go ahead, Anita.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to have a slightly long introduction, I think. My name is Anita Guha Mcgillivray, which is very long. I am Sarawakan born and bred, but I have lived overseas for quite a bit. I am the current president, and as Mona very kindly said, I was also the founding member, or one of the founding members of Friends of Sarawak Museum, FOSM, as we call ourselves. Now, FOSM is an NGO. Our mission statement is to promote an appreciation of Sarawak's heritage, tangible and intangible, through its museum. This does not restrict us to doing everything through the museum. We do lots of things outside of the museum purview. We push a goal. It's to support and promote preservation, conservation, restoration, and education in all things heritage in Sarawak. To achieve this, we have been running talks, having events and projects on varied subjects of Sarawak, you know, anything from history to rituals to oral history stories, craft, traditional arts, dress, archaeological sites, everything covers under, you know, we just have a very wide, broad spectrum. And now this brings me to our latest project, as Mona also told us. we are having a celebration of the Bakari Centenary celebrations. Now, this is not about the restaurant, okay? It's not 100 years old. The restaurant is named after Odoardo Bakari, an Italian botanist who came here in 1865. And what he said was quite true for here. Nowhere did I meet with primeval forests so richly varied and so peculiar in their flora as in the vicinity of Kuching. And that still holds true today, and a lot of people don't know about it. So what we have been trying to do is to highlight a little bit of the rich history of this area, and even more so to highlight the amazing biodiversity of Matang, and to make it a flagship destination for everyone to go and visit, and they can do. We have 4 events as part of the centenary celebrations. One is the Bakari Discovery Trail at Matang. The next would be the Kuba Rotan Valley Trail in Kuba National Park, which is close by. An exhibition on his works, and then a conference, fingers crossed, in March next year, we hope. Now, we launched the first of these trails events on the 25th, which is the Bakari Discovery Trail. Some of you would know it as the actual road that goes from the bottom of Jalan Matang up to the Indian temple on top of the hill. But interestingly, a lot of people didn't know about this. And by recreating this trail, we have made the history of the trail known to the public, made people aware of Sarawak's contribution to natural history science from as far back as 1845. We've let them know about Bakari and what he did in his 2 years here, what he discovered, and the history of the former coffee and tea plantation that Raja Charles Brooke had tried to establish there, and then how the Indian temple came to be on the top of the hill and a part of the Indian history in Sarawak. You know, Indians are very few. We are termed as others. And a lot of people don't know how the Indians came to be here, and this is one way of telling them. One of the things that has happened from all our projects and events that we have been doing is that we have come to be sharing our knowledge on quite our Sarawak special heritage with everyone, local and overseas. And in a way, a lot of the things have become a tourist attraction. And as the tourism industry is looking for ways to go forward in this unprecedented times, I mean, it's tough for them. And my heart goes out to all the people in the tourism industry. It's difficult. Heritage tourism seems to is an aspect that's coming to the fore in Sarawak. Now, we are happy to help develop this, but we have to be very, very careful and aware that we follow good, responsible, sustainable ecotourism. We need to preserve heritage for the future, and that is our aim here. We would like to be able to give the tourism industry something else to, for want of a better word, sell to the rest of the world, which I don't want to use that word, but you know what I mean, as another attraction for people coming to Sarawak to come and see our unique heritage. And we would really like to help with that. And that's why we've come on this talk to promote what we can do to help the tourism industry as well.
Fantastic. We'll talk about ecotourism and products and how do we balance that between selling and educating and preserving our nature.
Yes.
Thanks, Anita. Okay, Olivia, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Very good morning to you. My name is Olivia. I am the Executive Director and the General Manager of Meriton Hotel. As a director, I am in charge of branding image of our company. Among my other responsibilities, I also evaluate potential locales for our company expansion. As a general manager of Meriton Hotel Kuching, I oversee our hotel operations. We are a fairly new hotel in the city, and we are blessed to be surrounded by great local foods. I am very excited to be here today, and I look forward to sharing my experiences and thoughts on how we can persevere through these difficult times together. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Olivia. It's a nice, short and sweet. Okay, so we'll head right on to the discussion. We haven't got any questions yet, but to the attendees, just keep your questions coming and we'll pick them out as we go along. So the first question that I have to all of you, and this is especially to the business owners, were there any changes that you had to implement in your business during the pandemic in order for you to survive or in order for you to cope? And what were those changes? Gary, maybe you'd like to start on this one.
Right. As you all know, the MCO started sometime on the 18th of March this year. So we've had a lot, I mean, all cancellations for tours throughout the year. Some have canceled their tours, some have like put it on hold, some have like, you know, thinking about taking it next year. So I guess I speak for most of the travel agencies in Kuching. Most of us have had zero business until now. I mean, airports have been closed, airlines don't fly in, right? For us, we do inbound and also outbound tours. So if you can't get out of the country and you can't come in, there are no tours at all to do. Then when they started with the RMCO, that means, you know, we had domestic flights from KL and coming in to Kuching and all that. To be very frank, when it comes to domestic travel, there's not much business to be done for us local travel agents. It's very well known that most local people, if they want to come, for example, if they are from West Malaysia or Peninsular Malaysia and they want to come to Kuching, they will book their own flights. They'll book their own hotels. They'll come down, they'll rent a car. They get about, you know, on their own. They will not come to a travel agency and, you know, book tours from us. So it doesn't help us. Domestic travel at this particular time does not help us at all. And saying that too, nobody dares to travel at the moment. Even though RMCO has been, you know, I mean, the MCO has been relaxed to RMCO and all that. People are still afraid to travel because, you know, everybody knows that the virus is invisible. It could be anywhere. So even at home, getting to the supermarket is, you know, quite a frightful event for most people. What more to say to take a flight? So unless it's very, very necessary, maybe it's a business trip or something like that, that's the only time you'll find, you know, domestic tourism coming in. But it doesn't help our local travel agents, not a bit. Yeah.
So what have you done in Eco Green to cope with that, with this zero business ever since MCO?
We're still surviving. It's not easy. Yeah, we've come up with SOPs and all that, you know, to go in line with the government, what they want, you know, to keep customers safe and all that with the business. The staff, they realize what's happening, how bad the situation is. I think, like you said earlier, Mona, the travel industry is one of the most badly affected industries, not only in Sarawak, Malaysia, but throughout the world. Okay, everywhere it's happening because the virus is not just here, it's international, it's everywhere. And travel is something you can, like holidays is something you can do without. It is not a necessity. It's actually a luxury. All right, this year we can't travel, that's okay, you know. They can do without it. we'll put it up to next year or whatever. But it's not something that they must do. They might miss going for a holiday today, but they can do without it.
Mhm.
So we are the ones who actually suffer a lot because it's been quite a number of months um, with zero income at all.
Mhm.
And we still have overheads to take
Mhm.
care of. We have staff salaries to take care of, vehicles to maintain, Overheads are very high, which there are a lot of people don't realize that.
Mhm.
Um, Profit margin, I can say, among agents is not very high because there's so much competition. There's so many agents in Kuching itself. So profit margin is not that high. And when times like this, in times like this, it's really, really tough. In general, not because of only COVID. I mean, Sarawak has seen a lot of times where tourism is affected. Like for example, from January to March, that's normally our low season. Most children start school and all that, so nobody travels. Everybody's getting ready, their kids ready for school and all that. So generally, January to March is a very low period. We don't get much tourists. Then after March, you have a little bit of the European market catching up. We start to, build up our business a little bit. Then again, throughout the years, there's been so many disasters. Like we had SARS.
Mm.
SARS affected us also. Nobody traveled during that time. Lucky it was just a short period. Yeah. Then we have the haze every year.
Yeah.
And yeah, the haze, I can say, is very bad because if I were a tourist and I would like to travel to a country and I find out it's hazy all over the place, I wouldn't go. That's my own opinion.
Mm.
Why should I go to a place which is all full of smoke and everything's hazy? The scenery is nothing much to look at with all the haze.
Yep.
Then now we have the COVID-19 virus. Now the world has not seen such a virus
Yep.
since um, the early 1920s, 1918, when the first
Spanish flu.
influenza virus broke out, where 500 million people died. It lasted for more than 2.5 years. It disappeared, yeah. How, we don't know. We don't actually know. But it took a long time, 2.5 years. Now, COVID is something very new, not just to us, but to everyone. There's talk about vaccines and all that, but even if they come up with a vaccine, we're not going to see it that soon.
Mhm.
In my own opinion, maybe a year from now.
Mhm.
And by that time, I'm not an expert in this, okay? I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I'm speaking from what I know. Even by that time, even if we have the vaccine a year later, don't forget it's part of the influenza virus, and it mutates itself every 6 months, every 1 year. Will that vaccine still be effective for us? So what I'm trying to say is this is going to be a very, very long-term effect on everybody.
Yep.
The travel industry may be the first industry to be affected because we are the first to feel this impact. Yeah, no tourists coming, zero business, but in future it is going to affect. It's going to have a ripple effect for all companies. Slowly, everyone will be affected by this. So we will have to find ways how to overcome this or to live, not overcome, but to live with this virus.
Mhm.
Because I believe personally it's going to be around for a long time. It's just how we react to it, how we take precautions,
Yep.
lifestyle changes,
Yep.
tours. I mean, a change in tours, how we're gonna, have our tours done and all that. What sort of precautions we're gonna take, how to keep our clients safe. So we've got to work more on that, and that is what we have been working on during this period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I'm going to go back to you on some of the changes you mentioned that we could do in terms of business. Olivia, in the hotel industry, what are you guys doing during this lull? I think this is a huge lull for you guys, a few months of no business, unless you're a quarantine hotel. But then, it's a different thing to be a quarantine hotel. So what have you guys done, or what changes or what have you guys been up to during the MCO?
Apart from SOPs shared by the Malaysian Association of Hotels, one of the most significant change is now we have more time to increase the frequency of our trainings. It's a positive change because now we are better bonded with our staffs. Likewise, they also have a better working relationships with the colleagues. And yeah, we are creating a very healthy working environment. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that's great, because that's also what I'm hearing from a lot of businesses during this lull. It's a time where you sit back and reflect on your business, operations, how you do business, on your strategies, and also on upskilling. So I think this is the time when, there's no business. So that's the best time for you to actually do training programs, to learn with each other.
Role plays, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anita, anything in the NGO, any difference in how you guys run things?
No, not really, because we're all volunteers. And so, some of us get to work harder and some don't. But to come back to what you were saying, this is a time that we have been thrust upon us as such, that if we can take something positive out of it, in my case, I'm thinking about this whole idea of heritage tourism. Let's invest time, let's invest some money, if we can, into properly preserving, promoting, educating, training. Olivia used a word, upskilling, and frankly, it is something that tourism industry here and the tourism ministry and tourism, the whole tourism world needs to do in terms of heritage. And I think that is, I've been pushing that every time I go anywhere. People are getting sick of hearing me, but that's one thing, we do have the time now to do it. Let's do it properly. Let's educate people about our own heritage. Let's pass the message on. And so in the future, we have something to not just present as a tourism product, but just to preserve our own history, if anything, history and heritage. So that's the only little bit of silver lining I can see. We've got the time to do it. Let's make use of that time in a good way.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think the tourism ministry, during the MCO, they've been spending time. We've been having Zoom meetings, thinking, strategizing for tourism.
Yes.
They were planning for the next 30 years, I think, or 20 years. And one key item that I picked up from there, they said it's not about the numbers, but it's about the quality of tourists that we bring in, and how can they benefit our community, not just economically, but also conserving our nature and actually benefiting our people here. So I think that's a really good point, and we don't want to go into mass tourism just because. We want tourism, but we also want to enrich ourselves, our natural environment and our people. So I think that's a really good direction, and I hope they stay in that direction.
I hope so too.
Yeah, there's one really good question here coming in from Kiria Zulaika, and it's attention to Mr. Gary. So you said that no one dares to fly or travel because of the RMCO and the virus. But as we can see now, I think for the past 2 weeks, we can see that most of the people are now traveling within Malaysia, especially Langkawi and a few islands. Do you think this situation is going to benefit our tourism industry? Of course, Gary, you mentioned that domestic tourism doesn't really benefit the travel agents, perhaps the hotels in a way. But what's going to happen if the border doesn't open until next year? And what happens if the virus spreads during this domestic travel? And I think I'd like to ask a question here, because Gary, you mentioned that domestic tourism doesn't really benefit you as a travel agent. And I do agree with that. Before, we had the same problem because, well, we know what's in Langkawi. We can actually just hire a Grab to drive us around, and you know, probably hire a freelance guide, and you know, you don't need a travel agent. But is there anything we could do to actually tap into these domestic tourists, Gary?
Uh, like what I mentioned before, if you're talking about from a travel agent's point of view, then probably there's not much. But if you're talking about like places of visits and all that, you know, if they can give some discounts on entrance fees or hotels, you know, in certain destinations, like for example, you were talking about Langkawi and all that, yeah, that might help those who don't mind traveling, you know, knowing that there's this pandemic around, even, you know, if it's relaxed and all that. Yeah, it could help, but in my opinion, for travel agencies, it will not help that much. It'll be very, very minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only people who are, you know, not computer literate and all that. Then those are the people who would call up agencies and all that to book tours and all that. Otherwise, those who even have a handphone, a smartphone, they can do their whole bookings on the phone. So
Yeah.
it doesn't directly help any travel agent. That's
Well,
my
maybe
opinion.
unless you have a really unique product that I wouldn't say only you sell it, but you know, you package it in such a way that they won't be able to do it themselves. But do we have that? You know, like
Yes, I'll talk about that one later when
okay,
we come to a point where, I mean, when we talk about what we're going to do in ahead of time in
okay,
view of the COVID. Yeah.
okay. So and how about Olivia? In this now that you know some of the flights are allowed to come in and we have some domestic tourism happening, how's that for Meridian Hotel?
I think this 2 weeks, because of the mandatory 14 days quarantine and the restriction travel, we are experiencing very, very low occupancy. So we are waiting for Sarawak to get back to the safe zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but once the domestic travel opens up, I do believe that there is a potential. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so if we're talking about once we open up, but now I think if you're in Sarawak, you know that we're on the onset of the second wave. So we've had in one day 25 cases, and I don't know, maybe today more than that or less. I'm not sure of what the reports are. So with this onset of the second wave, are there any preparations that you guys are doing, or what are you guys doing to prepare yourself for this, Gary?
Well, basically, we've come up with our own SOPs in case we receive any, you know, guests. Like we try our best to make our guests feel safe and also comfortable when during this pandemic. So we implemented like, you know, baggage baggage disinfection when they come in from the airport. Upon arrival, also we'll have their temperature checked, and if they book tours and all that from us, then they'll have daily scanning of temperatures. So if anybody is found like with a high temperature or isn't feeling well, then they will not be allowed to join the rest of the group, right? For tours, that's for this to make everybody feel safe. We avoid crowded areas, even tour areas. Like just to give you an example, if say we're going to the orangutan, okay, Semongo, a day before we'll check to to see how many visitors they have. We can check with the other travel agents how many visitors are going the next day. If it's booked, I mean, if there's going to be a lot of people, then what we do is we might change or arrange for a different time that day. You know, if it's supposed to be in the morning, there are a lot of people, then we arrange it in the afternoon. So we shift around our itinerary to avoid crowded places. Big chances of, you know, exposure to other people. Also, the vehicles will be disinfected daily on a daily basis. We'll give out masks and also a bottle of disinfectant for them. What else? Sitting capacity also for lunches and dinners and all that will be minimized, you know, so like a table will only have maybe 4 people. It goes in line with the government's SOP, but we've implemented it into our tours.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's great that we have these SOPs and everyone's doing it. The venue, you know, like event organizers like ourselves, you know, we have SOPs for events, for crowd, you know, crowd control and, you know, temperature scanning and stuff like that. But that happens when you have people. When you have people to manage, you have events, you have tours, but right now you don't have any of those. So yes, you can have all these SOPs, you have the gun and all this, you know, QR code to scan, but there's no one there for you to scan. So what are we doing to actually, you know, get people to come in? So if they're not coming in, are you thinking of maybe virtual tours? For the hotels, you can't do much for that one. But for example, Anita, would a virtual tour of the Bakari Trail, for example, would that probably help during this time when people don't want to go out or they can't travel? So for someone in KL, for example, they're interested to see your Bakari Trail, but they don't want to come to Kuching. Would a virtual tour be workable in this case?
Yes and no, because it would take a lot to create a virtual trail, because, you know, you have to go off the road, you've got to look for plants, you've got to look for these signboards that are there, they're telling you what is available. It's possible, but a lot of work, I think.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I just had a quick look at one of these questions that someone came up with, and it was about getting people. It's quite interesting that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, walks up Santubong and walks to Bako, and they're getting oversubscribed. They've been limiting into Kuba National Park. They've been limiting people to 30 or 50, and people are turning up there and, you know, being turned away because they're saying we're going to keep it that way. I think for domestic tourism within Kuching itself, shall we say, that needs to happen. So going up the trail, we try and encourage people to go up 10 at a time or less. Virtual trail, yes, it's something we have to think about. It can be done, but it's just, you know, nature is very large out there.
Of course, yeah. I think it's. I mean, I'm a bird watcher, and I like to be there in nature, and I sit down and watch birds. And you can't do that virtually, obviously not.
No.
But if I can't travel and I'm pining to go out there in nature, I wouldn't mind a virtual tour just to see what it's like. And then it's sort of like it builds up and the interest for me to go out once I can. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just me, but for me, I think if there's no other option, and if I'm not willing,
that's a good one,
you know, to go out, I think I wouldn't mind seeing some things on my screen and then say, wow, you know, I didn't know you guys had it there, you know, and I'll be looking out for that plant when I do go to the trail. So I think this was brought up by Miss Mok Vinia, in fact, during one of the first Tuesday Talk Live that we had. And she was the one who said we should go into virtual tours. At that time, I was like, how do you even do a virtual tour? And who would want to sit down and just, you know, have a tour while just sitting down in your bedroom, like what I'm doing right now? So, but then I started thinking about it, and especially, for example, for museums, you could actually have a virtual tour of a museum. If you bring it outdoors, it'd be a bit complicated. You probably have a lot of camera angles that you need to work on, and probably a few people to actually work the camera and someone being the host and talking to people. But I think it would be workable. Gary, I see
Yes.
you shaking your head and nodding and not agreeing with me. So what do you think of these virtual tours?
I would rather watch National Geographic.
Ah,
No,
Why
I
not
mean,
have a National Geographic in Kuching, a National Geographic style tour?
no, I mean, to me, a tour is like what we have to offer. We have wildlife, we have culture, and all that. Being there is an experience.
Yeah.
A virtual tour does not give you that experience. It only gives you an idea of what you're going to see or what is available. To me, a tour is still a tour. You have to be there physically,
Mhm.
right?
But if you have no choice, how are you going to be there physically? Yeah, Anita, you wanted to add to
well,
that?
that I was going to say the other thing it could be, the virtual tours could be a way of attracting people to come.
Mhm.
Give them a
Exactly.
taste,
It's a
give them a
marketing.
taste of what is
It's part of
available
marketing the products as well.
as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Gary said something about tours, and he was going to talk about later. I'm not sure whether I'm interrupting here, but one of the thoughts I had also got, some years ago, FOSM developed a little tour of the Chinese Museum
Mhm.
and Carpenter Street, sort of a little history tour of the museum, and it was a walking tour. Now that is possible to do lots of little walking tours of different areas, which then could be filmed and presented as a virtual tour because okay, we don't have a huge lot of heritage buildings here, but we still have some nice, interesting heritage parts. The Kuching Heritage Race that happens every year.
Mhm.
We've highlighted we've highlighted quite a lot of little areas that people didn't know were part of our heritage. And yes, I guess in some ways we could develop that as a virtual tour and use it as a tool to get people to come back.
Yeah, marketing
I hope.
tools. Gary, were you done just now? Sorry, I interrupted you.
no, it's okay. I quite agree with
Mhm.
Anita. Yeah, it could be a platform to attract people, to give them an idea of what they're about to see or
Mhm.
they can see. Uh, but I still believe a tour. If you're talking about a tour, not a virtual tour, but a tour should involve a person being there and experiencing and feeling like a nature tour. You have to be in nature to actually experience all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but
This.
I kind
Yeah.
of agree with Anita, but you know, in order to attract people, yeah, you could use that. Yeah. It's nothing wrong with that.
That's true. And we've got someone, Shazali Johari, saying that tourism is about selling experiences. And for me, virtual tour is a virtual experience. So you're still selling an experience, although it's a slightly different experience. I do agree for nature, you have to be there, you have to experience it yourself, you have to smell it, you have to touch it, you have to feel it, in your heart when you're there. But when you have no choice, when you have no other options, this is an alternative, I would say, and it's also part of keeping yourself present in the minds of the consumers. If not, you'll be forgotten, you'll be at the back of their mind, and when you reopen the borders, they don't even remember you anymore because you were just all quiet and just staying home and not doing anything, no virtual tours. And I think it's something that we can develop further. Yes, it's not the best, it's not everything, and Bob Pursuit here is saying virtual tours are not going to save our businesses. They're not going to keep guides and drivers employed. However, this can be and has been used as a marketing tool. So I think that's, I think we all agree on that. And there's one good question from Gerald Drawhorn. When I was a boy, my school did a lot of field trips, perhaps developing interactive products to provide trips and guides to school groups would be one way of maintaining some of the services that tour agencies provide, while also educating students about their own nature and heritage. Of course, this would mean reaching out and reimagining what the tourism industry actually normally does. But would this be a possible approach? I think a lot of travel agents have been doing that. They've been approaching schools and they've been doing educational tours. And I think at the moment, students are not even allowed to be together in a group. So that's probably not the right time at the moment. But it's an alternative because you're outdoors and it's safer than being in a classroom. So perhaps you can have an educational tour, an education system where you're outdoors and in nature. Anita, your Bakari Trail was supposed to be an educational product. Would this be one approach that maybe you want to look into, approaching schools?
Yes, absolutely. That's the next second and third step of the whole project itself, is that it becomes an educational product and we bring it to schools. But as you very rightly said, at the present moment, nobody's going up there. The only way children or school students will be going up there are with their families. Schools are not ready to take people to various places, but it is definitely a medium that we need to explore. We've always talked about it as an educational thing for everybody. So yes, with the schools, definitely, but it's just the times. I don't know how we can go ahead with it right now. Bob Bazook said something which is very true. It's not giving jobs to the people in the tourism industry. And yes, Jerry's got a good idea that you can get the guides to do it, but then if they haven't got any clients to take up, they still can't go up. You see what I'm getting at? We just need to be able to get people to actually go to these things. And how do we do that? How do we attract people to be open to coming out and being, yes, we have all the SOPs in place, but we still have to reassure them that it's okay to do.
And Bob is asking another question. How much are you willing to pay for a virtual tour? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell a virtual tour, obviously it has to be cheaper because you're not literally there. So what do you guys think? How much would you pay for a virtual tour? Say you have an hour's tour of the Bakari Trail. How much would you pay for that one? Gary, I see you nodding and shaking your head.
Just checking the messages. Anita, I'll see you very soon. Because I, for one, I'm very interested in heritage, culture, nature.
Yeah.
And we've been doing a lot of educational student programs from students from overseas, from Europe, from America. They come and they learn about our system of education here, visit different schools and visit historical sites, culture, nature, and all that. So it's something that we do a lot. That's why once I hope this virus will be over, I'll come and see you and maybe visit your new site.
Me too.
Well, it's actually a public site.
Yeah, okay, but I would like to learn more about it. Maybe I'll come and see you one of these days.
You're on.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Mona, you were saying something.
Yeah, how much would you pay for a virtual tour?
Watch National Geographic.
Okay. Olivia, I'm going to pull you out here a bit. How much would you pay if I was going to invite you on the Bakari Trail, but it's a virtual tour of the trail?
I guess it really depends on how long is the trail and the things that I will get to see. If it's something that I can find anywhere else, then I wouldn't think that it's worth so much. But if it's something really unique, that's something that I don't see every day, and it's dangerous to get there, I wouldn't mind paying a certain reasonable amount for for the efforts being put into it. Yeah.
I think yeah, I'm not sure if it's a generational gap here, or like the younger ones would actually don't mind doing virtual tours, because we have been involved in virtual events for products, for example, unboxing of products. We don't actually touch the products, but we watch someone actually unboxing it. So that's actually a virtual experience that you sort of let someone have, but you share that experience through your screen. So we're going too much into virtual tours right now, and I'm going to prove some people wrong, and I think it can be done. I'm going to go on the Bakari Trail. I'm going to do a virtual tour of it. Let's see if it works. Okay, so in your organizations, any other things that you're doing different in order for this during this pandemic, and in the future after this whole thing blows over, are those changes that you've had currently, are those going to stay, or is this just for the COVID-19, and after this you're all going to go back to normal? Well, I hope the tourism industry does not go back to what we have been doing before. We should go into a new normal. Ecotourism, we should not go into too much of mass tourism. But once this whole thing is over, we forget, humans, we tend to forget, are we going to go back down that lane? Olivia, what do you think about this?
Okay, I'm going to answer your previous question, which
Yep.
is the preparation that we had in place
Yep.
for the second wave. So
Mhm.
in terms of business survival, we are now more focused on our F&B, because we have, number one, we have already lost our international guests. And now with the recent mandatory 14 days quarantine, as well as travel restrictions, as I mentioned earlier, we have also lost our domestic guests. So the only market we have left at this moment is the local. Having said that, locals, they will not choose a hotel in the city for their staycation. So we just have to play with whatever cards we have in our hands, which is our F&B. So people are starting to acknowledge the importance of digital platforms. We are seeing the convenience. Our online food delivery sales has gone up. People are taking precaution measures in staying safe in the comfort of their homes and offices. So this is very similar concept with what you were saying earlier about the virtual tours. It's like a trailer, when we watch a movie, we get an idea of the things that we're going to see, what we will be experiencing before we actually go and have these experiences ourselves. So at this moment, we can't really foresee the end game to this epidemic. So we can only wait and see how it ends, and only then we can conclude whether it is still necessary to continue practicing any of the existing precautions that we are taking right now.
I like that. I think like the virtual experience is just a trailer of the
Yeah,
real thing. We're not
correct.
saying that it's going to replace your actual tours, and
It can never replace.
yeah, it can never
Yeah,
replace. And Mr. Shazali is saying that he doesn't support virtual if it's related to our natural products. And I totally agree with that. You can't replace that, but it's just a complementary product, as it's a trailer to what you
yeah.
expect this.
It's like dating, right? You want to
Yeah.
go out on a date. You want to know more first before you
Yeah.
actually, put yourself out there. Yeah.
So you scout the Facebook, you see what they say on
Right,
LinkedIn, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the virtual experience. Anita, what do you foresee after this? What are you guys gonna do?
Well, we're just going to keep developing, as we said, pushing an appreciation of our heritage and seeing what we can keep on developing in that field, without thinking that it is a tourism product, but in terms of it's really in terms of preservation, conservation, and education over here. Yes, if it then becomes a tourism product or a tourism attraction, that's a good thing, but we have to be very careful again with that, and think about the socioeconomic background to it, about the future of it, whether it's sustainable. So in many ways, we have to put that into our thinking while we are producing, where we're coming up with events and coming up with products. For heritage, we have to start thinking whether it can be that it is being preserved, it is that we are being responsible in what we are doing and whether it's sustainable. So yes, there is an added element to all that we do now in promoting our heritage.
Gary.
And it'll continue being so. I don't think it's,
Yep.
I think we have to be realistic and say that, you know, COVID is not going to magically disappear and something else will come in its place. It's mutating, all sorts of things are happening. So we need to start introducing these things into our own, into everything that we do. So we're thinking, if we're talking about preservation of and promotion, we need to think about sustainability and everything else with it too, as part of it. Yep.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Gary, how about you?
I agree with Anita, because Kuching is a very, very unique city. It's beautiful because of all its heritage buildings, you know, it is what it is, and it's very unique. And we don't preserve all these historical buildings, and, you know, then we won't have it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And a lot has already been pulled down, as you all know. I don't have to mention that. And it can never be replaced. Kuching has that feel of the old and the new, and it's very unique. I visited a lot of cities in the world, and I still find Kuching such a unique mix and blend of, you know, our old culture with the new culture. And feedback from my clients who come again and again repeatedly, they still find Kuching a very nice, beautiful city because of that. So if you are trying to preserve or, you know, come up with new heritage sites, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm with you, Anita.
Okay, there's one last question that it's quite interesting. It's not a question. Well, Gerald is saying that there are still many foreign tourists still stranded in Malaysia. They can't fly out. In fact, there's even a Facebook group for those people who have been around throughout the MCO and RMCO. And there's also people who are here, the expats who are on the MM2H, Malaysia My Second Home. So these are people that could potentially be our domestic travelers. They're foreigners, but they're here. They're also, most of them are probably in West Malaysia and they can't fly in because of the quarantine and other measures, or because they're not willing to fly. But those here in Sarawak, those are potentially our clients, perhaps maybe not many of them around, but that's an avenue, I guess, for us to explore, because they haven't been around much. Maybe they've been around just on the tours that, and then eventually they had to undergo the MCO. So that's a really good point that Gerald is bringing up. And I'm just going back to what Gary is saying about preserving our heritage and our culture, and what Anita is also saying. And that brings me to the question, how should Sarawak position herself in terms of once everything is okay, and or maybe, you know, positioning ourselves, we should start now. So how should we brand ourselves for this new tourism once the border is open? What should we portray ourselves as, you know, in order to attract people to come in once things are okay and they want to decide to come to Sarawak? Gary, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, I think we have what, you know, most tourists want to come here for. Sarawak is Sarawak, and that's why they want to come here. But during times like this, when it's quiet and we don't have any tourists, it would be a good time to upgrade certain facilities, you know, have cleaner toilets around. I mean, very simple, you know, ideas like nice clean toilets close by to, you know, areas where they visit and things like that, you know. Better infrastructure, you know, to places like this. Even transportation, better roads, you know, leading to these places, because Sarawak has still a lot of areas which has not been explored. A lot of people think there's nothing much to see in Sarawak, but I definitely know there is a lot. The only problem is to get there. transportation, the infrastructure to actually get there. Um, Maybe I can talk a little bit about what we plan for the future. Yeah, it's also regarding a little bit on this. We plan to have like smaller groups, specialized groups. We do a lot of ecotourism tours, nature, culture, and that's in the central part of Borneo in the highlands. Um, we're trying to divert people from major areas, which you have a lot of people around, like the cities and all that. Yeah, they could fly into Kuching and then we fly out, away from all these places where you might get the virus, right? So in smaller towns, smaller villages and all that, chances of you contracting the virus is much less. So probably the clients would feel more safe. And this is what we've been corresponding with our agents overseas. And we have had actually quite a lot of interest in this new type of tours. But it's based on ecotourism, culture, and nature, away from cities and all that. And what we'll do is, of course, we'll have all these SOPs in place and all that. And we're also working with some insurance agents to come up with a special coverage just for the COVID-19 virus. Because we had a very frightful experience just before the MCO. We had a group of, I think they were, Eastern European group, and they were in Mulu at the time. And we heard about this MCO coming and all that, and somehow we managed to get them out in time. We had to cut short everything, and then get them to fly out and fly back. So yeah, it was really a tough time for us, but it was very interesting. A lot of things to learn. So that's why we thought about coming up with a special insurance, just in case. I mean, you have a group or a small group of people here, and there's an MCO or lockdown, then what's going to happen? Their flights have to be rearranged. That costs a lot of money. They have to be put up in the hotel for extra nights, for a month, for 3 months. We don't know. So that's why we're trying to come up with a special insurance just for our tours. Yeah. And we would like, we're planning actually to base our tours on areas out of Kuching, more into the interior, safer away from the mass population. So it'll be a change from what most travel agents or even what we are doing. We won't have bus loads. We won't have the volume anymore. But what we are concentrating now is value tours. Smaller groups, maybe 6 or maximum 8, keep it small, but full of value. So we are right now corresponding with our travel agents overseas, and they seem very, very important because a lot of people are afraid to travel in groups.
Yep.
Sitting down in the coach or with people that you don't know, but if you have like a small family, maybe 4 and maybe 2 more friends, just the 6 of them traveling together, they would feel more comfortable traveling and being together and not being with a crowd of people in a bus or something like that. So that's our new focus for the
Okay, that's great. And I think in Japan, they're going to that as well. And it's called micro tourism.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's all about micro. So everything is small. The group is small, and even going to places or small cities or small towns or small villages that you can visit, which are out of or on the beaten track, off the beaten track, they say. How about you, Olivia? What are your plans for the future, and what do you think Sarawak should, how should we rebrand ourselves?
Okay, number one, I think social media is a very, very powerful tool, and I don't think Sarawak is making a full advantage of that. Number two, I think we can go into eco and agro tourism. Believe Gary will know better on that. I mean, we have been promoting eco and agro-tourism, but I don't think that we are putting our 100% into that. Having said that, we have recently rediscovered a lot of places, such as Anita, the launch, the Indian temple, Sri Maha, right?
Yes, Sri
It's called Sri,
Maria.
There's a beautiful waterfall in Bengal. You know, all these places should be reintroduced. Our tourism board, as well as industry players such as ourselves, we can do regular postings, a brief introduction of what it is. For agro, yes, people know pepper, but are we really branding ourselves? Are we really, how's our packaging? You know, our Highland paddy rice, charcoal salt, you know, we can do regular postings on social media, maybe provide information on nutritional values, or we can describe the way how we cultivate it. Yeah.
And that's where some of the virtual experience will take place. So that's how you also do marketing. Gary, I'm looking at you. So that's what we should be doing. Anita, what do you think?
Well, I come in again with this heritage. I know I'm boring everyone with heritage tourism, but one of the things that you can do, we certainly have to build infrastructure for that, whether it's creating more trails and signage and stuff like that. But one of the things, and this is something that I've been so disappointed in Sarawak, is that we don't seem to have any continuity with these things. You know, after a few years, you go down the place and it's all falling apart. We need to put systems in place. You can't just develop it now and then that's it. That's the end of it. We need systems in place. We need the tourism board. We need Sarawak, the ministries, to realize that it's not just a 1-year, 2-year thing. If we are going to make different parts, if we say, for example, we create little mini tours within Kuching of the Chinese community, the Malay area in Satok and stuff like that, it needs to be a continuous thing. It needs to involve the people, the community involvement as well. But don't drop it like a hot potato after a while. It needs to continue. It needs upkeep. It needs systems and everything in place. And it just doesn't seem to happen. You know, something comes and oh yeah, it's a great place to go. Let's go and do this. And then after a while, you go in 5 years' time and it's not there. It's almost just sort of grown in on itself. And that shouldn't be, that mindset needs to change. Yes, we bring up, we do make world-class facilities, but make sure we keep them world-class facilities, whichever way it is. And especially with heritage, we need the preservation and conservation of it all for the future.
Totally agree with you, and I wouldn't wanna say whose responsibilities are you know, these are to maintain all these places. I think we all know, but also Mr. Shazali mentioned that this probably is a great time for us to maintain our facilities, our signages, our toilets. You know, like what Gary is saying. You know, simple things like signages in the jungle. You know, and just to explain what this tree is, what it does. You know, what this herb is. You know, what is it in our heritage, what does it do? So I think this is a great time for us to do that, but also to make sure that we maintain it after this whole thing is over, not just during this time. So so that's great. And I do agree with Olivia. I think we need to use social media more. We need to market ourselves more, especially for ecotourism and agro-tourism. I think we're fantastic with that. We've got great products, but we're not talking about them enough. We are, but not enough. So I think those are the things that I think are well, I'm not in the tourism ministry or tourism board, but these are things that we can also do ourselves. We can talk about it to our friends, to our circle, you know, what we have in Sarawak, and I hope some of the tourism board people are here, and maybe we can chat with them on what we think we can do together for the industry. All right, we've come to about an hour of a talk, and we've covered well all the questions mostly and the comments that we have. Another last one, just again from Gerald. Thank you, Gerald, for all these comments and questions. A virtual tour of the new museum might work because it will likely have restrictions in terms of how many people can enter at one time and the times and ages that can come. A lot of people will want to attend the opening, but that will obviously be impossible if the pandemic continues. So a virtual tour, well promoted again, will possibly take some of the pressure off, but also allow safe access. So I think, yeah, that's something for the museums. But I think they're gonna be ready in March next year. So that's something that we can look forward to. And hopefully by then, the pandemic has slowed down. I wouldn't say it has disappeared, but has slowed down enough for us to actually visit the museums. Okay. Do you guys have anything else to add before I end the show? Yep. All good? I'll talk to Anita about visiting the trail. I think I'm very interested to see what it's all about. I saw Datin Dona posting all the things that she saw, the spiders, the whatever that she saw on the trail. So it was really interesting. So we should all make a trip to Bakari Trail. Thank you so much, all speakers. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Gary. Yes, go ahead.
With the pandemic now on internationally, there's also talk of an economic recession that's coming. As you know, a lot of people are out of jobs now, right? Not just from the travel industry, but from many other industries too. So we have to look at how we're going to revive the travel industry here in Malaysia or even in Sarawak as a whole. That's why I think micro tourism will be a way forward. Because micro tourism, you can actually target people who can afford it. They're smaller groups, but you get value tours, right? And these are people who can afford it. They're not affected by the virus. But for people who are out of jobs and all that, I think there'll be a little bit of a slowdown when everything gets better, when the virus is gone and all that. There'll be a slowdown for a while, then slowly pick up. Yeah, that's just what I wanted to add. And another thing also, I welcome any new sites, heritage sites and all that, but I believe that the state government should also maintain these places. It's no point, coming up with a new tourist area. It opens up, everybody goes, and a year later it's all run down.
Yeah.
Maintenance is, a very, very important part to what we have to show to the tourists. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Gary. And I do agree. I think maintenance is one of our weaknesses here in Malaysia and all our tourism places, I think. It looks good, the launch is all fantastic, and then you go back there 1 year later, it is all overgrown. Microtourism, I think, is the key, and it's in line with our direction, our state direction. I think they're going more into ecotourism, smaller groups. Well, I think that's the only choice we have at the moment, smaller groups and less impact on our natural resources. I think that's fantastic. That's coming from Shazali Johari. And he also said, please pass this recording to MTech, the Ministry of Tourism. So whatever we discuss today, I'm not going to do that, but but let them watch it themselves here. And there's a lot of good points that we had. Thank you so much, Shazali Johari. Very good comments that you have here on the chat. I think all the panelists can see that. And we've got good questions from Bob, from Gerald, and from Kiria just now. Thank you so much to all the attendees on YouTube and also on Zoom. And thank you to all the speakers, the panelists, Anita, Gary, and Olivia. You guys had really good points. If you have anything to add, or if you wanted to add anything else, you could always post it on our Facebook, and our viewers are going to appreciate that. If you have any points that you want to add on to. And to all our viewers, if you have any other questions that, we don't have time right now to answer those questions, you can always post on our Facebook, and the speakers will be able to get them, and we'll channel it to them personally. So there we go. Thank you very much. And great stuff we had today. So see you next 2 weeks for the next episode of Tuesday Talk Live. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.